Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Moskalensky, and welcome to the Ben Moskalensky Show. We have the show every Saturday between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time, so if you'd like to call in, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. And we're joined here today by a very special co-host and my very best friend, Sammy.
Hi.
I don't know why you're waving. Anyways,
Automatic.
exactly. We are here today, and our very first topic is going to be about Russia, more specifically the end of the Romanovs, that general period, like 1890s, all the way to the end of Stalin's reign. And of course, we're going to be talking about Stalin, Lenin, the involvements in World War II. But first, I'd like to go over a general recap. For 200 plus years, the Romanovs were the ruling family of Russia, starting with Peter the Great, all the way until Nicholas II, until Lenin took over, Vladimir Lenin, and created the Soviet Union and joined up with some other countries. I believe it was the world's very first entirely communist or socialist republic or country. And this was made due to the fact that Russia at the time was doing horribly, to the point where you needed bags and bags of rubles, which was Russia's currency and still is, in order to buy a single loaf of bread. I believe it was 5 bags of rubles to buy a single loaf of bread.
Yeah, I think those ideas did not work out that well.
Yep. After Lenin died in 1924, Trotsky was supposed to take over when one of Stalin's employees, if you will, one of the guys Stalin was working with pre and post revolution, Joseph Stalin, assassinated Trotsky and took over Russia. He was the leader of Russia during our Great Depression, during World War II, and all the way until the year 1953. So that's the general overview. I don't believe I missed any important details. Obviously, we're going to talk about stuff in general. We're going to get into how this ties into current events. And yes, we're going to talk about Putin, everybody's favorite person to talk about. Sammy, did I miss any major events?
I don't think so, but then again, I am not an expert on Russian history, so maybe.
Right. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the rise of the communists. And one thing I find very interesting about this is the kind of a domino effect after our revolution. Every world revolution, and although the Russian Revolution is very separated from the American Revolution time-wise, and the causes are very different, it was kind of a domino effect. I mean, it was our revolution and the French Revolution, which was much sooner, and then it was the Russian Revolution, I believe. I'm talking about major countries here, and most recently the Chinese Revolution. And I guess to an extent, I don't think you can really count Korea. And I suppose the German Revolution, if you're talking about Hitler's rise to power. But one thing I find interesting, and if you look at this is true, is every single revolution except ours has always turned out badly. American Revolution took down the world's most popular nation, or most powerful nation at the time, being Britain, and started one of the world's greatest empires or countries. That's a crucial difference. Don't want to make that mistake. The French Revolution got Napoleon, and if you look at how Hitler was fair and square elected. Stalin wasn't. He assassinated Trotsky and got there. Hitler was fair and square elected. But still, the effect wasn't good with this new rising idea of Hitler and his style. Then, of course, you have the Russian Revolution. That ended fantastically with the Soviet Union. And the Chinese Revolution, which had a similar ending with communism. And the thing that always amazes me is I understand why the Russians fell into this trap. It should be a fairly easy thing to overlook, but whatever. No one has ever made that mistake before. Country after country after country after country has fallen into this communist trap, and we almost did too. if it wasn't for Hillary Clinton, or if it wasn't for the DNC kind of stabbing Bernie Sanders in the back, there could be a very real possibility of Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders, and a very, very terrifying possibility of a President Bernie Sanders who believes in a communistic society. And the thing is, communism can never work because
it can only work in small areas.
Right, like people say, well, it's working for Sweden. Yeah, I need a magnifying glass to see Sweden, because the thing is, it doesn't work on a large scale. And the Soviet Union, China, and even some of the smaller countries like Venezuela, like I believe they're communist. It proves the point again and again and again, and people still keep trying to do it because every time they think it's different for our country when it isn't.
It's like how people keep remaking the word for massacre because it's a different thing for them.
Right. Sammy, would you like to elaborate on the trap of communism and how it kind of starts and definitely the much worse ending?
No.
Okay then. Thanks for co-hosting.
I don't know.
Well, let me.
I don't know in particular.
Well, yeah, you don't know the specifics, but here's the general thing. There's a fairly stable government. Government lasts a while. Government economy goes down horribly, or some horrible event happens to government and people. There's an uprising. An uprising involves some sort of a strong leader who believes in communism. Communism takes the entire country over. Economy collapses. Tons of people die. Wars start. And then the cycle ends. And then some other country thinks, well, I mean, those people were bad people, but it'll work for us. And the reason communism fails is because of people. The concept itself is great. Everyone shares money. No one gets left behind.
It's a great concept.
But, Sammy, if you had money coming towards you, and if you didn't work, you would still keep having money.
But then who works?
Exactly. You would never, ever need to work again. And some people would still keep genuinely working.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. If you have everyone is rich and stuff, but who makes the food?
Exactly.
The slaves. It's been something like that.
Kind of.
Quite,
not quite.
It's something like that. It's just the question of who does everything.
Right. Because when you have capitalism isn't perfect. By a long stretch, it is not perfect because as an example, you look at old people, like veterans, as an example. Not even old people, like veterans who don't have to be that old, but they fought and got horrible injuries for their country, and might lead to like stuff like PTSD or other diseases that will kill you even after out of war.
Yeah.
By capitalism, if it's pure capitalism, they get screwed in the process. But that's why you need to find like some sort of an in-between, like a hybrid. But I think it should be more leaning towards capitalism. But with communism, more and more people are like, well, I mean, all these people are working. I mean, who cares if I just get my money, get my TV, get my food for my family or for just myself, and I can just live out the rest of my life. And it's not some grandiose process. It's not like the value of an economy like slowly going down over time because of Wall Street and this and that, to the point where something needs to be done eventually. Stuff like this can happen in a matter of no time whatsoever. The economy for Russia before the Soviet Union was horrible. It was still horrible under the Soviet Union. I mean, there was constant rioting, constant fights. It wasn't much better. But and now we're going to move forward a bit. The reason that the Soviet Union stayed in power as long as it did was because of its unbelievably strict fist. It was like an Orwellian society. In 1948, George Orwell wrote 1984, and people from the Soviet Union who could speak English without pronouncing the word "we" as "v" found it just absolutely amazing how someone could obviously 1984 at the time was considered as futuristic, like, whoa, public TVs? But still, a lot of stuff with a big brother kind of government watching over eye. That is what it was like in the Soviet Union. because you speak, and especially under Stalin's era. I mean, it was bad all along, but under Stalin's era, it was the worst. It doesn't even matter whether or not you're guilty or innocent, because if someone rats you out, again, you could just disagree with this person. They get mad at you and they say, this person doesn't like the government. The government will come in and, again, especially Stalin's government, they'll just kill you and your family. And that was the solution. I believe Stalin killed 20 million people in Russia during his 30-year reign because no one could stop him.
20 million people in 30 years.
Right, which is
He's a lot of people very quickly.
And yeah, I mean, you look at, I mean, obviously what Hitler did was even worse because it spread worldwide.
Well, yeah.
But Stalin, I mean, he was doing this only to his own people. The Russians, it was just the Russians who were being killed solely. Like some countries did better than others and worse than others during World War II. Like Japan, and Japan took World War II horribly. But you look at, say, one of the neutral countries, like one of the banking countries, like Switzerland, they took it fantastic. They just got tons of business. And the thing about Stalin was nobody benefited. There was no benefit from Stalin. Although the negatives far outweighed the positives in World War II, there were still some benefactors of it. Not that, of course, that I'm defending the actions of like what Hitler did and everything in World War II. But what Stalin did, it was flat out 20 million people were murdered of his own people. Yeah. And it's a different thing. Like Genghis Khan, I mean, he murdered Chinese, and I'm not saying it's better or worse if you murder someone else's people or your own. But the thing that just amazes me is, I mean, how the people just fell into this trap, and they were forced to stay with it for the longest time, because at one point the rate was approximately 1 in 3 people were working for the KGB, or something like that, or like in some way tied to the KGB. And you can't even think you couldn't even think for yourself. And I'm not even talking about Stalin era. I'm talking about just Soviet Union in general. If you even slightly have any kind of a problem with the government, that's it for you. Now, Sammy, did you know that that Stalin was part of the revolution? He didn't just come in; he was actively working with Stalin during the revolution. I'm sorry, with Lenin during the revolution.
That makes more sense, because if he's working with himself, well, he's still in the revolution.
He's already doing that. But
yeah.
But yes, Stalin was no figure just coming onto the scene, because he worked side by side with Lenin. And that's the thing too, where a lot of these people, that's another thing, you got to look out for people even if they don't look like who they are. Stalin, from what I've heard, was a shy person in public. He did not seem like a very smart person, when in reality he was a genius. I mean, Lenin knew, and Stalin didn't dare make a move on Lenin. But once Lenin died, Stalin just snapped his fingers, got rid of Trotsky, and there's the next 30 years in Stalin's life. He could live out the rest of his life in wealth, and he could do pretty much whatever he wanted, and it was solely his country. And in my view, that's totally a dictatorship, even though and it's actually a lot this way with a lot of communistic societies. Would you say there's a single communistic society that did not have a dictatorship?
I don't think so.
I mean, every single one has not gone well. If it's like real socialism or communism, it was taken apart too quickly to be registered. It was either taken apart too quickly to do any real harm to itself or others, or it would turn out horrible, like Russia's or China's, and get horrible leaders like Stalin, who killed 20 million of their own people.
Yeah, Stalin's just his takeover, I guess I'm gonna call it. It's kind of impressive. It's kind of amazing in a not so good way.
Right. It was extremely well planned, and the thing is, patience is a huge virtue as well, because he just waited. He was okay with his position under Lenin, and I don't think he made a single move under Lenin, and that's one of the reasons Napoleon and Hitler felt like. They wanted to take over, take over, take over, and they were these unstoppable forces until they went into Russia, and they got totally killed due to the fact that they both invaded during winter, and that's why both of those parties ended. Yeah, Napoleon got killed because of Russia's winter, and Hitler couldn't do it also under Russia's winter.
Yeah, you should know the place that you're invading.
Right, and that was a crucial mistake for Hitler and Napoleon, which is why they both died, and deservingly so, horrific deaths. While Stalin, he lived out a happy life on the whole. I mean, he was rich. He had a family. He has living descendants to this day, unlike Hitler. And he died of a stroke in the mid-50s. I believe it was 53. And he just ruled Russia pretty much single-handedly. And that was the story of Stalin. Anyway, sorry running a bit behind here. Now we're going to be moving on to our second section, which will be about movies and actors. But before we get into that, and before I hijack the show even more. Sorry, I've been giving you a lot of talking time so far, Sandy.
Well, I don't know anything really about Russian history, except it didn't go well.
Right. That applies to pretty much every country's history.
Well, I mean, there's times everywhere that things don't go well.
Of course. But
yeah,
before we get more into movies and actors, or at all into it, don't forget to call the number 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Now we're going to be moving on to movies and actors.
I wonder if you've memorized that number by now.
Oh, I have.
Wow.
Now, Sammy, have you seen any good movies recently?
Good movies
or bad ones? I want to know, has there been any movie that has stood out in your mind, be it in a positive or negative direction? It doesn't have to be a new movie, just one that
okay, I was about to ask if it had to be a new movie or not.
It's got to be one that you saw that in your view really stood
out. Percy Jackson, and the second Percy Jackson movie.
What did you think of it?
It's terrible. The first one was okay, it mostly followed the book. The second one, it made no sense when looking at it from a book standpoint, you know, because it completely did something entirely different. It took the characters, but it completely messed the story up. So,
but I'm talking from you're clearly a book lover.
Well, yeah.
And that's a key difference between you and I, because I like listening to those nice audible books. You listen to that Scott Brick, very nice.
Yeah, they are.
But as for the movie itself, do you think the movie was terrible solely because it's strewn away from the book?
Well, that, and also the way that it was, like, there were characters who had to have. It was this book where there were lots of supernatural characters like a Cyclops, and the way they just looked was a bit unsettling, and it didn't really look right.
So, but in your view, the overall feel of the movie, do you think that was actually ruined just because of the bad acting and bad graphics?
Well, yeah, mostly.
Interesting. I've been actually seeing some really good movies lately.
Oh, really?
Yes, Wonder Woman, fantastic movie. I didn't really sense any of the super politically correct stuff. I mean, it takes place in World War I, so any of the pro-women stuff was actually accurate to stuff at the time, but the little amount of stuff in the present was, you know, with equality and all that sort of stuff. But in the past, they portrayed it as it actually was. The acting, in my view, was very good. They got Captain Kirk to play an American spy who's a British spy who's a German spy who's also an Ottoman spy. So yeah, the Captain Kirk role
is a spy.
Something like that. That part was kind of a bit weird, just a bit. But overall, I thought the movie was very good. The acting was funny. The jokes did not feel forced in any way. I thought it was very natural. I also like what they did with Wonder Woman in general. Gal Gadot is a fantastic role. I think they picked a great actress to play Wonder Woman. And the story with Gal Gadot was very interesting. And let me go real quick into the story of Gal Gadot. She is a conservative former IDF soldier. And she's also Israeli and a Zionist. And a Zionist is a Jew who believes Israel is the homeland. And she got bombarded to the point where I believe it was at least a couple days. The number one hashtag on Twitter was boycott Wonder Woman because they got a conservative Zionist as the main role. And I gotta say, props to DC for not just like, just giving into the crap that all the Twitter morons were spewing, because this is one of the problems, and I actually want to get into this as well. This is one of the problems with a lot of movies and games nowadays, is the fact that it is reliant either not at all or completely on the fan base. Can you think of a movie that either did not have anything to do with what the fans wanted, or did it so much that it felt ruined?
Can I take like Japanese movies in
You
the
could
list?
take any movie.
Okay, because I can't really think of any that are either one because I don't really know if they were influenced by fan bases often.
Well, I'm gonna give it a perfect example. Star Wars Episode 7. I thought it was a pretty good movie,
Yeah, it's okay.
but when they asked George Lucas, or I forget which, it was either George Lucas or J.J. Abrams. I believe it was Abrams, since Lucas didn't work on it. So it must have been Abrams then. When they asked J.J. Abrams why they pretty much copy pasted the script of Episode 4, and then was like, okay, leave out the part where the brother and sister kiss and change the name. There we go. Sell the movie, everybody. Other than that part, other than why did you make it so unbelievably similar to Episode 4? And he responded saying it was a movie for the fans. That was not a movie for the fans. There was so much hype. There was an unbelievable amount of hype, and not just from the fans, from my family as well. Like, everyone was hyped for this movie. Now, sometimes a movie is really good, but because you had such astronomical expectations, it didn't look as good in your mind. This was the case with I believe, yes, it was Despicable Me 2. Despicable Me 2 was a pretty good movie. It was not as good as the first, but it was pretty good. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, what are sequels? Sequels are not often as good as the first movie.
Well, yeah, that's because typically there's different people, and it's a sequel, so there's to an extent less ideas, and your creative field is less wide. Because when you do your very first thing, your creative field is literally with no holds barred. You can do anything and everything. And as you move forward, the stuff, and I can definitely speak for this. It applies to my books as well, because all my books, I try to be unique with my books. Every single book takes place in the same universe.
It gets a little harder to keep going.
Definitely. It gets harder and harder. And that's one of the things, I don't know how DC and Marvel keeps doing it. They come out with creative, original movies that stick to the plot of the comics, which I love to read. I have tons of them.
Yeah.
But it also represents a new movie, like, without stealing from... It creates a fan-loved movie. Most of them create a fan-loved movie without getting to the point where it becomes Episode 7. Now, they did not make this mistake. The people who worked on Star Wars with Rogue One. Have you seen Rogue One, Sammy?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was a very good movie. It was neat. I kind of liked how it just ended. It felt a bit more complete.
Right.
It didn't feel like it was just pushing to get more and more.
Exactly. I mean, it's called a Star Wars story. It's a one-time story. And that's one of the things I like. It's also not one of these Hollywood endings where everything is always happy.
No, it actually had them. Well,
it was a bit, yeah. Spoilers. Thank you for saying before I could say spoilers, Sammy.
Well, my bad.
The door's over there. That was sarcasm.
Well, I mean,
don't worry. Don't worry.
If we're talking about movies, expect spoilers.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Why are you listening to this if you don't?
Right.
Go somewhere else.
Exactly. Thank you for driving away my viewers.
No problem.
But I feel like Rogue One did it perfectly, because it had an extreme Star Wars feel to it. It felt totally like a Star Wars movie. It had all the elements. It had the characters. It had a similar build-up. But the closest equivalent to Rogue One, in my view, was Episode 5. It had some similarities to Episode 5, but it was completely unique. It was totally unique. It had its own characters. And they still did things like, oh, we have the funny droid with little quirks. We have whatever the main two heroes are in love. Well, a lot of movies do that, but
Mhm.
one of the heroes happens to be kind of not exactly good, and the other one is like totally pure of heart and all that sort of stuff. And there's the Death Star. Death Star's there, and that's cool.
It tied into the, I don't remember what episode it was, but it tied back into the main story very nicely.
Right, exactly. It tied into the main story without copying it.
Yeah, it didn't bring any of the characters really back to it, the main characters you see, but I think it brought a couple, but it did explain some stuff.
Yep, and I think I was the only person in the theater who noticed that Admiral Tarkin was CGI. I noticed that because I used to do a lot of editing on some of my commentaries, and I can tell it's something CGI. But I missed the fact that Leia was CGI. Everyone else noticed that Leia was CGI, and no one else noticed that Tarkin was CGI.
Don't you love it when you realize something that other people don't, but you don't realize the stuff right in front of you?
That's exactly what happened. I was like so proud of myself for realizing that one thing because no one else in the theater, like people were cheering and clapping, like, "Wow, that's amazing!" when they showed that one Leia Easter egg at the end. But everyone at the end of Tarkin was like, "Oh, they brought Tarkin back! Wow, he must be pretty old at this point." So that's kind of cool how that turned out. And that's the thing, and this applies to video games, books, etc. You need to make something that is for the fans. If you take a series and spin it into something it is not, it's you might as well just make a new series. It can have similarities, but
I feel like the Rogue One was a bit easier to do because it had the ending where they died. The characters aren't going to be coming back,
right?
So they had a bit more freedom with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They didn't. Yeah, they
weren't so confined as with like episode 7 and such.
Right. But with episode 7. No, actually, I'd say episode 7 they had more opportunity than Rogue One. Because Rogue One, they needed to end it where the characters don't come back.
Yeah, otherwise they have a lot of explaining.
Right, in episode 8. And B, they need to get the Death Star plans. You need to make that work one way or another. And those are pretty big deals. Those are like movie-changing things. The thing with episode 7, this is after all the events of all the other movies and canon books and shows. And by the way, I'm still waiting for the Grand Admiral Thrawn movie. Disney, if you're watching this, Grand Admiral Thrawn movie, we need it right now. The Grand Admiral Thrawn series. It was an author made it. It originally was not canon. Like they bought the rights, of course, and published the book. It's a series of books about one of the last Grand Admirals of the Empire after it collapsed, and it brought back all the favorite characters like Luke, Han, Leia, etc. It was absolutely amazing. I highly recommend reading it. But movies, they need to find that line between we're doing what the fans want, that we want to make it similar to the series, but we don't want to copy and paste it.
Again, with episode 7, they didn't have as much freedom because they needed to make it more for the fans. Those characters in Rogue One are not coming back. These characters are going to be coming back for a fair amount of time, so they had to make it so that the fans would like them for later ones. And they might be a bit more worried about getting the fans to like them because they're planning on bringing them back.
Right. And that's actually a great point. And I don't know about you, but I want a solo Darth Vader movie because they showed Darth Vader for like whatever. I think they said it was a sum of 3 minutes or 4 minutes or something. Best 3 or 4 minutes of the movie, and no one can disagree with me. Anyways, Sammy, you say that I remember that number by heart, and I'm going to prove it right. So don't forget to call in right as we're getting into our third section. The number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Now I'm going to show the number to Sammy. And
you got it right, but you also looked at it beforehand a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I was watching your screen.
Okay, fine. Well, we're going to get rid of this right now. I'm going to close this tab with the number. So now, next time,
you won't be looking at it, and let's see if you remember it.
Does everyone see this? This is called envy and jealousy.
Yeah, like I wish I could remember that number.
But anyways, right now we're moving on to our third section, which is the free-for-all section, where we can talk about anything. We talk about past subjects, we can kind of get into our next subject, or we can just talk about something different entirely. So, Sammy, if there's anything at all you would be interested in talking about in any topic, let me know. And so, what would you like? How should we kick off? We're already a minute in to our third topic. How would you like to kick it off?
I don't know.
Thank you very much once again for co-hosting with me. Now, well, anyways, since some people on decisive trigger, I'd like to get into real quick. I'd like to talk a little bit about our next section, at least for now.
Next section is
video games.
Okay, I should probably remember that.
You really should have. Thank you. But no, our next section is going to be video games, and I'd like to talk about that for a minute. But we're not going to get into the main focus of our next section, which is going to be about corporations and remakes and remasters.
Video games.
Exactly. I'd like to talk right now about what do you think makes a video game fun? What do you think makes this is a really interesting question, because with movies it's a very flat answer. Good story, good actors. The effects can be crap. The effects can be crap. It doesn't have to be original. If you have good actors and you have a fairly compelling storyline, that's all you need for a good movie.
A fairly good storyline is needed for some games, but the thing is, with games, there's a lot of different games. So there's games that don't really need a story.
Right, like you look at
barely need one at least.
Well, no, some games don't need it at all. You look at like Super Smash Bros. 4, one of my favorite fighter. Actually, I would say my favorite fighter, and I've never played Melee, so please stop spamming. I can already feel people saying you have the Melee.
I played Melee. Wait, I
Melee is the one that makes you want to jab both fingers into your eye. And yes, I've seen many Let's Plays with Melee. And
which device is that on?
Well, now you can do it on computer. I believe it was originally for the NES, so I'm going to Google this right now, because if I missed a comma, then no one is ever going to forgive me, because this is legit everyone's favorite game. Okay, it was for the GameCube. Whew, I'm happy I looked that up.
The GameCube. We got a GameCube.
Now, they rated Melee. Apparently, they rated Melee teen. I think they should have rated it MA, because Melee is it's more intense than Battlefield 1 could ever even dream to be. And by the way, if you guys haven't gotten Battlefield 1, it is an amazing game. And looks like we have our first caller. Hello, right now you're on the Ben Moskalensky show. Right now we're in our free-for-all section, and we're talking about video games and what makes video games good in general. So what would you like to contribute to that, caller?
Cool.
Hello?
I'm not graduate top. I hope.
By the way, what's your name? Excuse me, what's your name?
You only have to give us a first name.
Yep, just what's your name?
Barely can't hear you.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
She can't hear us either,
I don't quite understand.
I'm sorry. It looks like you're gonna have to call back. Well, that was great. Anyway, so
someone called in.
That's true.
That's a record.
Exactly. It's not like I've ever gotten 3 calls on a show before. Oh wait, yes, I have twice.
Yeah, twice, and there's 5. There's been 3.
Thank you. So anyway, so Melee. The thing about Melee is, if anyone has ever seen or played Melee, Super Smash Bros. 4 is an extremely fun party experience. They call the Mario Party games fun for party. Please. The Super Smash Bros. Games are so much more fun.
Have you played Mario Party?
Yes, several.
Good.
Triggered there, unreal. But the thing about Melee is, which makes it so much better than the other games, it was made in 2001. It looks like it was animated by a 5-year-old, but it is one of the single most intense, hard to play, and the combos. This is one of the fastest paced games. You play a game like Battlefield 1. I've never played the multiplayer, but I hear it is horrible. But the reason that Battlefield 1 is still a 5-star game in my experience is the solo campaign. And it's actually the same with Modern Warfare 2. And before the Flame War begins, I'm going to explain why I think Modern Warfare 2 is a very good game.
I think we've done a bit off topic there. Sure. Keep going. It's
Well, we're in a free for all. Yeah, I mean,
We're
jeez.
just going all over.
Yeah,
the
it's
place.
free for all. We can talk about anything. We
Got
can
it.
even switch off
Very
video
far.
games. You can talk about several topics during a free for all. But if anyone would not like to listen to video games for a free for all and talk about something else, the number is 719.
Again, you looked at it.
I didn't do it on purpose. I don't care. The number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. And if Sammy interrupted me the first time, hopefully this time you can hear it. The number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Anyways, we're going to go back right now to video games. So the thing about Battlefield 1 is a fantastic game because of its campaign, its solo campaign. It has several different stories, and you can play as different characters during World War I in different parts of the world. You can play as one of the soldiers.
Adding to why games are good story.
That's actually part of it.
Yeah.
But not all of it. Another part of it is the fighting mechanics. But you look at Battlefield 1. I mean, the fighting mechanics themselves. Obviously, the graphics I'd say are even better than most games we have nowadays, but not much. But first of all, the intensity. Not only is it as realistic as it can get, but you have that. It's amazing what music can do.
Yes.
A soundtrack, I would not say is as high on the list as story or mechanics.
But it's definitely a piece of it that nicely adds to like the ambiance and the feel of it.
Right, because it's one thing when you just got the gunfire, like you could do that in BioShock.
It feels like a different game depending on the soundtrack. If you've got an intense soundtrack, it gives off what you want people to.
And that's actually one of the reasons I absolutely adored Ocarina of Time was because of its
Ocarina.
Thank you. Because of Ocarina of Time. That's one of the reasons I adored it, and I played it over half a dozen times at least. It's because of its not only its story and its absolutely insane characters, which really presented an interesting dynamic and a very new kind of change for the Zelda series in general, but also its beautiful soundtrack, which could go across intense songs like Song of Storms, which can be a very not intense but very jolly and very different mood kind of feeling, that dun 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 dun.
Doesn't like in Zelda they change the song where you are, don't they?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that's very cool.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you can have
because having songs change depending on where you are gives you the feel of the area.
Right. And then you can have other songs like one of the main melodies. Da, 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 da. And when you hear that song, when you play on your ocarina, it gives you this complete sense of calm and immersion. Whereas sometimes you can be fighting an enemy or desperately trying under any circumstances not to hit a chicken. You in Gerudo Valley, you got the da 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 banana banana. I know I can be an opera singer.
Yeah.
But it adds an immense feel to the soundtrack or to the game.
That is the soundtrack.
Right. It can add an unbelievable feeling to the game, and that's one of the things that's so great about Battlefield 1. It's not really the soundtrack. It's one specific deal. Whenever you fight, or whenever you're in the middle of a big battle zone, like let's say you're on your third mission in Italy, you're trying to storm the Germans to recapture the rest of your team. While you're fighting, you have literally the most intense song I think anyone can ever come up with. It literally sounds like this. And by the way, here's the approximate volume. I'm going to estimate the volume. And the volume, no matter what volume you're at, it sounds about the same, be it on console or wherever else. The volume always sounds about the same. The entire time you have that going while you are fighting for your life. You have intense graphics and an amazing feel. And that's one of the things that makes Battlefield 1 so great. And another thing about Modern Warfare 2, it had such an amazing story. And that again, you can even have one of those things. I think gameplay and story are the two most important things. You only need
yes. Gameplay and story, mechanics, and how snappy your controls are.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Gameplay in general and story. Those are the two things of anything. And you don't even have to have both of them. You just need to expertly have one of them.
With some games. Depends on your intent.
No. Have you ever played Inside? It has one.
I have not played it. I have watched people play
It is one of the best games, I think, of 2016. But
Wait,
its
this is the
gameplay
one
is.
with the head things that you can control other people with.
I'm not gonna give spoilers, but the ending is the most satisfying thing when you
Oh,
when you
no.
become the blob.
Okay, yeah, we are thinking.
That's
of the
all I'm
same
gonna
thing.
say though. Nothing else.
Grand.
That
That-
doesn't reveal anything.
The blob. Yeah.
The blob thing though, you know what I mean? That
Yeah,
again, that
it's-
reveals nothing.
Yeah. And
It's not a spoiler like the end of Rogue One. And again, spoiler if anyone didn't miss Sammy's screw up. That everyone
But
again,
then-
spoiler that everyone dies at the end of Rogue One.
again, why are you watching people talk if you don't expect spoilers about movies?
People want movie reviews to find out if a movie's
Yes,
good
go
or not.
look up a movie review. We are not a movie review.
Like 5 viewers ever. He went from like 300 to 5 just because of that one statement.
Yeah, we aren't.
Well, good thing on YouTube you only have to watch half the video for it to count as a view, so too late now.
Yay.
But the thing is, you look at Modern Warfare 2 and Metal Gear Solid 5. Modern Warfare 2, the online thing, the online gameplay is one of the worst things I think mankind has ever created. Have you ever had overcooked chicken?
I've had undercooked chicken.
That must have been fun. I've
yeah.
had due to the fact that I see my grandmother frequently. I do know what oversalted, overcooked chicken tastes
I've
like.
had overcooked Brussels sprouts. They're the worst.
I don't eat Brussels sprouts. I just I get
Brussels sprouts?
but with the chicken, it's horrible. You eat any food that has been oversalted, overburned. Now imagine that feeling 300-fold on every single part of your body. Every single part of your body feels like this. And you are just in complete agony. That is playing Modern Warfare 2 online. It is so agonizing because the spawn points are all the same. If you camp in the spawn points, you can get like, I want to say, 5 kills, no problem whatsoever.
So it's a bit unfair.
With CSGO, yeah, like you have time to like branch out. That's why the warm-up time is so great. With Modern Warfare, CSGO, and that's actually another point where CSGO is a fantastic game with literally no story, and the same applies to Smash Bros. 4. CSGO, it stands for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It's pretty much government.
Oh, that was one you messed up and said where you use real guns.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, where it's
You're
pretty
not
much
shooting your screen.
exactly. Well, you play. It's like a simulator of what it would be like. You play as like government versus terrorist kind of.
You use a real type.
It's like a very real kind of scenario, but there's no story pretty much, and the same applies with Smash Bros. 4. Now you look at a game like Metal Gear Solid 5. Metal Gear Solid 5 is an amazing game, and it has one of the worst stories a professional video game has ever come out with. The story is horrible. I didn't keep track of it. Modern Warfare 2's story was absolutely amazing. It's this cool deal where like it plays this Russian who gets betrayed, but you're actually an American, and now the Russians are trying to get revenge, but the Americans are trying to get revenge, and you have to like fly over, you have to go to a sub, and you have to stop the sub before it sends nukes into space, which will take down the Russian. Yeah, it's like all that sort of stuff.
Send nukes to space.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like an unbelievable story.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it just has this unbelievable story, which totally makes up for pretty much anything else. But you look at Metal Gear Solid 5, the story, it's a movie game. It's not. Yeah, it's kind of a movie game hybrid, and the story is horrible. I mean, I just said screw the story at some point. Well, no. Some movie games are great. You look at that BioShock. Ooh, BioShock.
Games are made in the movie.
No, we don't talk about Forbidden Realm. 1993 Super Mario Bros. You get the nukes ready.
I saw that.
The happy way.
I mean, making a movie about a person who jumps on blocks and saves a princess isn't that easy.
Especially since his last name's Mario, even though in the original game his last name was Jumpman. So they changed it from
Mario.
No, it was Mario Jumpman in the original. But then they changed Jumpman to his middle name. So now Mario's name is Mario Jumpman Mario. But anyways, Metal Gear Solid.
Mario.
That's if you don't do the middle name.
Well, yeah, he's Mario J. Mario.
I guess so. Anyways, we're about to finish up this section here, and if you'd like, you can call in. And this time, I will not touch the number until after I'm done. The number is 7. If you'd like to call in, the number is 719-284-5873. with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 2477. Now we will look at the number, and would you look at that? Would you look at that? All right, checking the stream quality, everything's going well. But
I
anyways,
applaud you.
anyways, before we move on to our final section,
Video games.
yeah, where we get more specific and we narrow it down rather than just abroad what we were doing right now, is the fact that Metal Gear Solid 5 is a horrible story. It's just not interesting.
I never actually figured out what the story was.
Me neither.
I've never played the game.
Well, I have. Well, I haven't. I played parts of it, and I watched the rest of it on Let's Play. I played a good amount of it. And the story is just so bad from what I've seen on the Let's Plays and from what I've seen for myself. It's just a horrible story. But the gameplay is so much fun. You can actually create you can create your own zoo. You can like shoot a little mini bomb onto someone's back, and then they get in an helicopter. You can blow it up. You can wear a chicken head. You can put your arm on a missile and shoot it at some guy. You can pretend to be a woman. It's hilarious. I mean, you can do so much cool and interesting stuff.
Wait, you can pretend to be a woman?
Yeah, you can like dress up as one. It's hilarious.
Wow.
And there's so much. There's just so much you can do with the game. It's such an interesting dynamic. And then there are some games that have amazing graphics, amazing, well, to an extent, great characters. But if you have neither of those things, if you literally get everything else right, but you have neither story nor gameplay, your game will be horrible.
Oh,
Have you played the newest Hitman?
Hitman.
You got to be kidding me.
No, wait.
The Hitman series? You scrub.
I know what it is.
Good.
I watched it for
Good.
like 20 minutes, and then I quit because it was so boring.
Exactly. Hitman, the new Hitman. The series, it's been totally overhyped.
I didn't like close.
But anyways, the Hitman series. The story is nothing.
I didn't think there was
nothing.
a story.
There was, yeah. There's every single game always has a story in Hitman, but the story is nothing, and the gameplay is nothing.
It's not that clear. I mean, I watched people play it. I still didn't get what we were doing.
And the Hitman 2016, garbage. Absolute trash. I recommend no one plays the new Hitman.
It's a bit boring.
I did not like it at all myself. I've seen people play it. I like those like comedy montages, of course, that like make fun of the game, like Video Game Donkey. Hilarious channel. Highly recommend. Yeah, we don't swear on this channel, but constantly on his. But there's no like super offensive humor or anything.
Yeah, just swearing.
Exactly.
Nothing to worry about there.
And anyways,
family-friendly swearing.
Right, and we're moving on to our final section now, which is video games.
I have a random question though.
Yes.
Do you know what prototype is?
Prototype. I know what the word means, but not the game.
You don't know the game where you eat people and take their skin?
That's like a documentary on my life. I was originally born Jebediah Smith, but no, I don't. So let's talk about that game. Since we're in our video game section, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I guess you might even want to know the story first. So the story is you're a person named Alex Mercer who woke up in a morgue.
Okay.
Who's thought dead. You only know you're Alex Mercer. You have no memories. You only know you're Alex Mercer because of people were saying it around you while they were saying, "Who is this guy?"
Okay.
Oh, it's Alex Mercer.
Keep going.
And he escapes the morgue and eats someone. Gets his memories. He's a soldier, I believe. Gets his memories and then goes to meet his sister because he got all of his memories and he knew about his sister. So he was over there and well, he knows he can eat people and it regenerates health and you can pretend to be them.
Great. Sounds like a really family-friendly game.
Oh yeah, it is. And there's not much gore in it actually. Well, my brother says there is, but I didn't see it. I played it.
Prototype, rated E for everyone.
It might as well be. I mean, you just eat people and get their memories, and the memories are so boring.
Good for you. So, anyways, now we're gonna talk about. First, okay. So for the next 5 minutes, we're gonna talk about remakes and remasters, and then for the final 5 minutes, we're gonna be talking about corporate, like why getting too involved in a game and focusing on the little nitty-gritty details make it worse. But first, remakes and remasters. In your view, what makes a remake or a remaster good?
It doesn't take away any elements that made the other one good.
Absolutely, that is a fantastic starting point. Because you look at Final Fantasy VII, the original was weird as heck, and instead of getting rid of the not at all PG scene. I think the rest of the game is good, but there's like this one really R-rated scene. I believe. I haven't played it for myself, but from what I've heard from others, there's this one really awkward scene, and I had it described to me, and I cannot tell any of it on the air without being demonetized. Any of it. But it's like they didn't get rid of any of the weird stuff. It was just like they kind of polished the graphics. Now, sometimes polishing the graphics is good.
Yeah, sometimes there's games where they're just good as they were before, and they just polish it up and get it ready to play on another console, and because they can't play on the next console.
You look at Halo 1. Actually, I think there were several remasters, but I don't.
Oh yeah, actually, I have the remastered.
Well, the game itself was fine, but the HD, the jump to HD did nothing really. It was just a jump to HD.
Yeah, well, the one I got the whole Master Chief Collection stuff and others. Well, the only thing that I find different is that it can switch between the old graphics and the new graphics.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually very neat. But when everything in there still looks like nothing, there's no color, there's nothing interesting. HD doesn't do much for you. It's just slightly brighter. It's slightly less metallic.
Right.
Square looking.
Now, you look at a game like Wind Waker. Oh my gosh.
It's so colorful.
The original Wind Waker is like, okay, this is good. This is like, I don't know, Phantom Train. Oh wait, no, Phantom Train came out after. This is like what was actually the original Zelda? That was nothing special. A Link to the Past. No one talks smack on Link to the Past. Link to the Past was amazing.
Oh, was it?
I love Link to the Past.
Cool.
At least the original. But like you look at the original Zelda, even for games of that time, it was nothing special. And it was the same with the original Wind Waker. I didn't play it for myself, but from Let's Plays, like when the game was hot and new and everything. Before they made the HD version, it was like, okay, this is a cool looking game. I'm gonna leave now, watch that Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, it's just, again, the thing with Wind Waker is it was a very colorful, cartoony game.
Right, and the jump to HD totally
just brought all that out. It didn't like change everything. Like in Halo, they actually changed some of the environments and stuff.
Oh, did they really?
They changed some of the environments. Like sometimes were metallic looking, they turn up grass and stuff.
Okay.
But with that one, they really just brought everything out and made it look even brighter and cartoonier than it.
And that's exactly what the series needed. The game itself was good, but it gets overshadowed by the fact that like this is meant to be a cartoony. This game, it already had a great story. Yeah, it already had great gameplay, but it just the graphics were behind the times.
Yeah, and so the story was ahead of the graphics, basically.
Right, and at the time, in my view,
couldn't have done much.
Graphics was one of the biggest things for me at the time. Now I know better. Like now I look at Link to the Past. You compare it to Hitman, it's such a difference. But I mean, Wind Waker.
Link to the Past made for 3DS.
Link to the Past, 1991.
Okay. That's
ancient.
I cannot keep my Zeldas.
A Link to the
my
Past.
head.
No. I got like the entire timeline. I got that map. I got the Nintendo official and the map.
I've only played like 2, and one of them was Spirit Tracks.
The door's over there. But the jump to HD for Wind Waker was an absolute. It just made the game so much better. But then again, sometimes improving the graphics is just not enough. Again, in my view, like Halo 1. I don't think Halo 1 really needed a remaster, but what they should have done
to be able to bring it to the next console.
Right. What they should have done for Halo 1 was alter the difficulties. You got easy and normal, which are so easy. You can tie your hands behind your back. You can play with your teeth and you can win.
Yeah.
Like you can move like half an FPS.
Yeah, but my brother still sucks.
Really?
He launches himself up with rocket launchers.
What difficulty?
Normal.
That's scrub.
He blows himself up. He can't aim.
Now but there should be something between heroic and there should be a difficulty between heroic and legendary. Heroic is also pretty easy. It's not quite as easy and normal, but heroic in my view is pretty easy. You play legendary, multiple times I got the noose out. It was possibly one of the single most painful experiences.
Just made hard.
Well, no, heroic is like hard, but many games fail to find that difficulty that's just perfect.
This is why people need to know the difficulty of regular people.
Right, and I don't think games should have like difficulty settings. I think there should be one set difficulty that is perfect.
Well, it depends on what game you're playing. If you're playing a game where you progressively get better at it and move forward, and it gives you just better.
Well, no, I'm saying at the beginning of the game when it's like easy, normal, and stuff. I don't think that should be an option because you can just it becomes too easy to win. You need to feel like you've won the game. You have won this game 100%. Like you look at BioShock 1. I played the game on easy. I have never. It's like it was beyond easy. Okay, it wasn't beyond easy, but it was really easy. You play BioShock 1 on hard, perfection. Because BioShock 1 on hard, it's that perfect line between this game is freaking Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, where the line between hard and random crap just being thrown at you that you cannot avoid is totally, the lines is totally melded, and that perfect gap between complete and total skill. Anyways, we're going to be moving on right now into big games and little video games and how sometimes lower budget can help and how sometimes a higher budget.
You should make the show slightly longer. It might
Just
be
a bit.
easier to talk.
Maybe in the future. Well, I'll think about that. But anyways, do you know about early access?
Early access games, yes.
What are the first two letters of each word? Sorry, the first letter of each word.
Early. EA.
That took you way too long. Aren't you going to the 7th grade next year? EA.
It took me a second to wonder why you're asking me this.
EA, ladies and gentlemen. That is why.
What did they think?
EA. Everything that's wrong with the world.
That doesn't answer my question.
They made a lot of games, but EA is known for. Okay, EA itself is really good. They can make a lot of. If they really put effort into a game and put time into it, they can make some of the masterpieces of our universe. But most of the EA games lately, you look at the new Battlefront, the original Battlefront, it captured my soul. It was Star Wars. It was like coming back to my childhood. You play Battlefront, you could play with all your favorite characters again. You can play, you can get to play even as Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. You get to have this great online immersion experience. You look at the new Battlefront by EA. Okay, so out of the 9 modes we have, only 2 of them are good. And there are so many people who have gotten into these 2 online modes that it's not even fun to play those 2 modes anymore. EA needs to stop rushing games. And this is what happened with Sonic 06 and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric.
Yeah, the game's a bit broken.
I think the only thing worse than Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, a painful experience which I treaded through, was Sonic 06. These are 2 of the most broken games of all time.
There's something interesting. You know when there's games on Steam. And there are games where they just bring them out and then they expect to fix them up later. There's a thing on older games. If there was a glitch, they're stuck with it now because it's out. So they would take more time to get the bugs out. Otherwise, you don't have a good game.
Right.
But now we have games that they just get updates and updates and updates, and sometimes those updates break the game.
Right.
Yeah, there's a game.
And
I got as an early access. Well, my brother got as an early access.
That was his first mistake. And we'll extend the show a couple minutes because I think we started a bit late. So yeah, you were saying.
And then when it got out, I completely lost all of his save.
That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, he lost everything, and then it glitched out and wouldn't save.
His mistake was getting early access.
Well, he had a free pass for it, so.
But anyways,
I think it was actually on Origins, and Origins is broken.
So, as I was saying, you gotta learn how to fix with a remaster. If you're not just fixing up the graphics, you need to learn instead of just polishing bugs. You need to learn why people didn't like the original as much. It's those
look at the complaints. Look at what people liked. You don't actually. If you only look at the complaints, sometimes there'll be some who don't like certain things that other people really liked. So you want to look at what they liked and what they hated.
You look at Sonic Mania. Now, all these other games, they were shutting down. All these other companies, they were shutting down. All these fan-made projects. No, you can't do that. Sega. Or Sony, I forget. I believe it was Sega. Sega decided, no. We're not going to make the same mistake. And trust me, it's kind of weird to say Sega totally was in the right. But yeah, Sega did great here. What Sega did was they they got in a bunch of fans who were really good programmers and knew a lot about the series, and they worked with them and made a game, Sonic Mania. They made really funny advertisements for it, which really got a lot of people hooked. And they allowed the fans to publish the game, and it was made like Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I still say is possibly the best Sonic game of all time. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was an amazing game, very colorful, very unique. I loved it, but I'm not going to go into a tirade, if you will, of why I loved Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Then you look at a game like No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was the exact definition of too much corporation.
Yeah, well, they also hyped it up a bit more than they could.
But anyways, No Man's Sky. The first couple hours, I remember I've never played No Man's Sky myself.
I have.
You have?
Well, my brother got it and I got to play it.
Well, tell me if this scenario sounds familiar. The first couple hours completely mesmerize you. You can do literally anything. You sound completely amazed. And eventually, it's the same wash, rinse, repeat again and again and again throughout the rest of the game.
Yes, it sounds a bit like that. And also, the game was it was very big. So it also, after a few hours, well, our computer started lagging and we had to quit.
And
that was fun.
And it was $60. $60
He even got it
for No Man's Sky.
He even got it beforehand, and I think he regretted it because he stopped playing.
I don't blame him from what I've seen. And the thing is, and then of course you got these the trusted game critics. If the company buys them out.
Again, something else. They hyped it up, and when the game came out, they had stuff that they had promised.
That
they never got to.
Yeah, but I talked about that separately.
Yeah, they have.
We don't need to go into that. That was
good. I'm glad you talked about.
Yeah, my first show was like one of the sections was almost entirely devoted to No Man's Sky.
Well, but I never look back at stuff.
Exactly, but so the end strategy is when you make a remake and remaster. First, try the HD thing. We already passed this. Sorry, for the corporate thing. How you make a game good is by you listen to your diehard fans. You listen to the diehard
fans, and
to an extent.
Yeah, you don't want them to overwrite what the game was before.
Right, because like the people who made Sonic Mania, they could not have made Sonic Mania. They could not have put together all that professionally put together stuff. But like the gameplay itself and all that sort of like all the polishing that was done by the company. But the raw programming of it should not be left to a bunch of 75-year-olds who have never touched a Sonic game in their life. It should be left to the people who have grown up with the Sonic games and know what it should feel like. That's the first thing.
And also, if the people who originally made the game, if you're going back to it, what made it different? If they didn't like the way it was before, but if some people didn't like the way it was before, you shouldn't just overwrite the game and make it something different.
Right, like you need to see what people liked, see what people didn't.
But keep the original.
Right, and if you're not going to bring in other people, then keep it. Then at least listen. If you're not going to bring in other people, at least listen to other people.
And don't change the gameplay that much. It usually doesn't go well.
Right, unless it forces a different console.
Well, I mean, if you have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
gameplay for different levels.
Yeah, you don't want to, but you also don't want to keep it completely the same, where it's the same game.
And I just want to bring up one problem
that
I personally hate. So we've got Halo. I hate the multiplayer now. So the multiplayer was grand in Xbox 360. We moved it to Xbox One. Now we have to have 2 Xboxes to play with more than 2 people.
That's awesome.
And you've got to have online stuff to access all this stuff. If like you don't want to be constantly connected to the internet or have multiple things. I mean, it's useful to have that option, but when that's the only option, it doesn't work.
I see your point. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's show. We're going to be back on Saturday, next Saturday. Same time, same place, same number. So make sure you join us then. Make sure to give us your common participation if you can't make it to the call. Let your friends and family know about it. Once again, have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.